Woo! 2020. Alas, explore, learn, and share. Kazoa Billionaires is my name, and it's such a privilege to have you watching. Thank you so much for sparing your time, and I hope we learn together. Mini Partition Wizard free, version 11.6, and an interesting topic of migrating an OS and cloning and creating a clone of your disk. Migrating an OS is the equivalent of someone having their home well furnished, and then by some change of events they decide to move to another house. So they move with all their furniture and all their luggage to that new house, and it becomes their new area of occupation. That's the equivalent of migrating an OS. However, cloning, someone has their home, let me say a mansion in Beverly Hills, or in Uganda, there is a place called Muyenga, or any other primate state that you could choose, and then someone builds a replica of their mansion in another area and furnishes it, puts all the furniture and all, let me say, all the household items that are required to be exactly like the other home that they have. That's the equivalent, in sketchy terms, of cloning a disk. Now, it's safer to clone a disk than to migrate an OS, because during the transit process of migrating an OS, it is possible to have a few errors that can lead to corruption of your operating system, which is something we do not want. So it's usually good to take a good level of caution for you to be able to migrate, successfully migrate your OS. But as per recommendation from what I have observed and what I have read and what I have done, cloning an operating system or cloning a disk is way better. And that's what we are going to explore today. Let's dive right in. So now we are welcomed by a partition, by a wizard. Now this wizard is straightforward. It's a 1, 2, 3. Of course, there's this tool is so handy. You can also have a tutorial here. Now what I want us to do is to follow the prompts as simply as, like I said, 1, 2, 3. So when you go to next, of course the disk that you want to copy is selected entirely. You realize that there is a highlight around all the partitions, so you move it entirely. So it's not possible for you to move a certain percentage of it. Of course, I don't think anyone would do that, because you want to make a clone, you desire to have an exact as the previous on your new hard disk or on your new machine that you want to migrate your hard disk to, or clone your hard disk to. So after selecting the disk you want to copy, it's straightforward. You move on to the next disk, which is my second disk. You realize the previous one was disk 1, the capacity of around roughly 300 GB. You move on to the next, which is roughly 150 GB. But you have to note that this previous disk 1, has this amount of space. The disk you're copying to, it's usually advisable. Now this is what I was able to get, but it's really advisable to have a disk that is larger or equivalent to the disk that you are getting the files from. So it's not usually advisable to have a disk that is smaller, but for illustration purposes I'll just use the smaller disk. Then we go on. Of course, are you sure you would like all there is a formatting that has to happen so that the disk conforms to the file system that is on the disk that you're copying data from, so that it's able to house the data very well. Of course, I'm not going to allow this because it's for illustration purposes. And then when we go on, you realize that you will be able to migrate your operating system. Of course, the machine will restart. For purposes of shortening the video, there is restarting, and then after restarting, everything is pretty much straightforward, but it's really a handy tool. I would like you to explore it. Thus far, you explore, you learn, you share. I would like to thank you for viewing and wish you a blessed week. Till we meet again, goodbye.